Well, that wasn't a slow weekend of news, eh? Holy moly. Greetings. Happy Monday to all of you. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. I am Steve Deace. He's Todd Erzin. He's Aaron McIntyre. We are brought to you by our friends over at Relief Factor. If you're waking up every morning wondering how you're going to get rid of this chronic pain that just won't go away, that's the stiffness, achiness that just lingers, usually because you've got too much inflammation in your joints. That's why it's called chronic. Right? Well, we may have the solution for you. No guarantees, but over the years, about 1 million people have tried the 3-week quick start from Relief Factor, including Deborah Ann. She gave it a shot. Her chronic pain was so bad, she was struggling to get to sleep at night. She turned to Relief Factor. After just 4 days, her pain was gone. She summed it up beautifully when she said, quote, "I absolutely love how I am feeling." Now, again, no guarantees, but over the years, including Deborah Ann, over 1 million people have tried the 3-week quick start from Relief Factor. 70% of them had the results Deborah Ann did. Such great results in 3 weeks or less. They've stuck with the product long term. Why don't you see, if you don't see a difference in your chronic pain level in 3 weeks or less, especially when it costs you just $20 to find out, with the 3-week quick start from Relief Factor, call 800-4-RELIEF. That's 800-4-RELIEF, or go to relieffactor.com. That's relieffactor.com. Also, don't forget, we have a new show here at The Blaze as well called Strange Encounters. If you want a thought-provoking, bold discussion of some of the more mysterious things in our world, but from a biblical worldview, rooted in truth, Rick Burgess has this new series out right now, available for Blaze TV subscribers, called Strange Encounters. You can watch it now at blazetv.com/Deace and get $20 off your subscription with the code Deace. $20 off your subscription with the code Deace right now when you go to blazetv.com/Deace, blazetv.com/Deace, and use the code Deace for $20 off. That'll be $8 a month for a year. The cost of just one of those coffees you're buying like every day. 26 cents a day. All the great exclusive content we do here at The Blaze, including Strange Encounters with Rick Burgess, with the code Deace right now at blazetv.com/Deace. You'll save $20 right now with the promo code Deace at blazetv.com/Deace for Blaze TV. Unfiltered, unafraid, and on demand. All right, next hour, we have something very special lined up for you. It is a big, big day on the show. And we have something to unveil exclusively to you guys as part of our audience, first and foremost. And you're going to get that first look coming up in the next hour of the show. You absolutely do not want to miss this. Also coming up a little bit later on. So now we have both Kash, Patel, and my buddy Dan Bongino saying they've looked at the file and they believe that Epstein has killed himself. Well, we're going to find out what FBI whistleblower Steve Friend thinks about that coming up in the next hour of the show as well. But let's kick this thing off, as we always do, with Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by impeccable timing. Late last week, Axios tripped and fell over the audio recordings of special counsel Robert Hur's interview with Joe Biden over his alleged mishandling of classified government documents. Those recordings, of course, were never released by the Biden White House. You'll recall the result of that special counsel investigation was Hur deciding that any jury would find Biden as a, quote, sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory.
Where did you keep papers that related to those things that you were actively working?
Well, I don't know. This is what, 2017, 18, that area?
Yes, sir.
Remember, in this time frame, my son is either been deployed or is dying.
Those recordings were released late last week on the eve of the release of CNN's Joseph Goebbels' book about the cover-up of Joe Biden's mental decline, which, as you know, Goebbels himself participated in. That book releases this week, and it sure looked like there was a possibility of a bloodbath of what was left of Democrats in Washington and the media's credibility on multiple levels. And then on Sunday, wouldn't you know, the former president announced he has an aggressive form of prostate cancer. It's already spread to his bones. Here's Joe Biden in July of 2022 in a statement that was later characterized as one of his classic gaffes.
It had to put on their windshield wipers to get literally the oil slick off the window. That's why I and so damn many other people I grew up have cancer, and why for the longest time, Delaware had the highest cancer rate in the nation.
None of you were born yesterday. You all know exactly what's going on here. For the scant minority of you who might still be confused, here's former Obama advisor and Democrat insider David Axelrod on CNN just moments after the announcement of Biden's diagnosis.
Do you believe that silences or delays a lot of conversations about his, last year and a half of his presidency for now?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think those conversations are going to happen, but they should be more muted and set aside for now as he's struggling through this.
The Biden era in this country is one of the most artificial phenomenons in modern human history. Nothing about this man's rise to power came about naturally, from his necromancy in the 2020 Democrat primaries to his auto-pen presidency to the cover-up of his obvious mental decline, and now to the cover-up of his obvious inability to lead this nation. Nothing occurred naturally. It was all engineered, and to the extent that his debate performance last summer was natural, the aftermath of that debate was also engineered and artificial, with the Democratic Party eschewing a democratic process in order to kick Biden to the curb. Joseph Goebbels, your thoughts?
What do you think of conservatives now criticizing you and the media in general for how President Biden was covered during his administration?
I think some of the criticism is fair, to be honest, of me. Certainly, I'm not going to speak for anybody else. But knowing then what I know now, I look back at my coverage during the Biden years, and I did cover some of these issues.
Learning Chinese today. Today's phrase is sleazebags on parade.
卑鄙小人正在游行.
Moving on, the Supreme Court's latest cowardly act is kicking the case regarding President Trump's use of the Alien Enemies Act to deport violent gang members back to a lower court. The court says the Fifth Circuit has to decide the case, but agrees that some heads up must be afforded these violent criminals before the U.S. can eject them from the country. And now here's this. 3 examples of the logical conclusion of secular humanism unfolded over the weekend. First, in Palm Springs, California, where a 25-year-old nut job bombed an IVF clinic, killing himself and injuring others. Suspect Guy Edwards Bartkus is said to have left rambling messages about his anti-natalist views or pro-mortalist views, saying he basically believes all human life is immoral and he never consented to being born. Then, World Economic Forum resident philosopher Yuval Noah Harari had this post on X captioned, quote, "Nothing in nature has a purpose and nothing that exists is unnatural. Happy International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia, and Transphobia." Here's the video Harari published on that post.
Darwin is the kind of prophet of sexual liberation. If I think about the liberation of gay people, of LGBTQ people, then if you dig underneath, you eventually find Darwin. For centuries upon centuries, gay people were persecuted and oppressed because of this mythological idea about sex, that sex was created by God for the purpose of procreation. And if you use sex for anything else, you're sinning against the purpose of the thing, so you must be punished. And then Darwin came, and Darwin said, in biology, there are no purposes. Nothing has any purpose in biology. In biology, there are only causes.
And then there's this from former Democrat presidential nominee Hillary Clinton.
Blatant effort to basically send a message, most exemplified by Vance and Musk and others, that, what we really need from you women are more children. And what that really means is you should go back to doing what you were born to do. You had read the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025, despite Trump saying he knew nothing about it. If you had read it, it's all in there. It's all in there. Return to the family, the nuclear family, return to being a Christian nation, return to, producing a lot of children, which is sort of odd because the people who produce the most children in our country are immigrants, and they want to deport them. So none of this adds up. But, one of the reasons why our economy did so much better than comparable advanced economies across the world is because we actually had a replenishment, because we had a lot of immigrants, legally and undocumented, who had a, larger than normal, by American standards, family.
So there is the ethos of secular humanism. All life is immoral, and that's why we get to bomb fertility clinics. To the extent that any human life is moral, it's also purposeless, and that's why we get to trans the children. And if you use Christianity to stand up to us, we'll replace you with third worlders. Other than all of that, wonderful singing voice. And finally, coming at us straight to your liberal parents.
Mom, Dad, can I tell you something?
Yes, of course, sweetheart. What's up?
I'm dating someone.
What's his name?
Her name is Sarah. I'm straight.
Okay.
What did you just say?
No, let's not. Let's
Carol,
just come.
What did you just say?
I'm straight.
He said he's straight, so let's just all breathe through this.
No son of mine!
Okay.
Will be straight.
Here's the thing. When you're young, you experiment.
You don't, this is a phase.
I love you no matter. Honey?
No, I'm not doing this.
Okay. What do you think of Celine Dion? Are you just done with her?
I don't know.
He doesn't know about Celine Dion anymore.
And that's what happened while we were away.
Aaron, I have to tell you, as one of the few worldview guys that does this for a living and has reached this level of platforming of a show, I could not have possibly connected the dots better than you did at the tail end of that montage, man.
Oh, I appreciate that.
That did look like 100, no trolling. Straight up, man, that looked like 100% biblical worldview, man.
I appreciate that. It was also just, I saw those things unfold, and I also knew that it was otherwise a really busy weekend. Good way to zig when everybody else is zagging too.
I mean, the way that you connected those dots, I was like, I've got nothing left to say. The circle is now complete on how you connected the dots there. Well done. Aaron's montage brought to you by our friends over at Trust and Will. Creating a trust and will can be a slow, time-consuming process. It's also not necessarily the most fun thing in the world to contemplate and think about, how this is all going to end. Nevertheless, we need to be prepared, right? And you should at least update your situation every few years. We just updated ours a couple of years ago, and we used Trust and Will to do it before we decided to talk to you about them. Let's try it for ourselves. And we were blown away how customizable it was, how easy it was, how quick it went by. So we use them to take care of the documents for our, situations later in life that we don't want to contemplate, that we're getting closer and closer to, as we just graduated our final one over the weekend. So we are officially old now, all right? So keep your family prepared and protected by managing your will or trust online. Each one that you'll do with Trust and Will can be state-specific, legally valid, customized to your needs for care wishes, nomination, guardians, final arrangements, and more, all right? With an overall rating of excellent, thousands of 5-star reviews on Trustpilot, and a very good review from yours truly. Uncomplicate the process with Trust and Will. Protect what matters most in minutes at trustandwill.com/dace to get 10% off. Trustandwill.com/dace to get 10% off. That's 10% off at trustandwill.com/dace. Well, you have raised the bar in terms of dot connecting, my friend. So I'm going to attempt to meet it here, but on a different threshold. What we have undergone as a country over these last 5+ years, really starting in March of 2020, it is, and there were seeds of this before, from Russia collusion hoaxes. Okay, there were seeds of this before, but in terms of putting wheels in motion, setting a board, and then pushing the button to engage a plan. What has gone on here for the last 5+ years in our country, I am just going to tell you right now, human beings are not capable of this. The Democrats picked Tim Walz to be their vice presidential nominee. That alone will tell you that this was not a human endeavor, what has been put on us throughout the era of the Biden presidency, its lead up and its aftermath. And that we are dealing, folks, with really dark forces here. Strongholds and principalities that are not from the mortal world. As human beings, we are not capable of this layer, of this level and layer of plotting and scheming. This requires beings and intelligence beyond us. We had two things hit us in the spring of 2020. And they hit back to back. First, the first Tuesday in March, we saw executed the likes of something that's we've just never seen in a non-fiction environment. The kind of thing that makes for a subplot in a political thriller. And this is when the entire Democrat media complex, in a span of 48 hours, took a dead carcass of a candidacy known as Joe Biden, leveraged all of their available resources in the 48-hour lead up, so literally the weekend prior to Super Tuesday, out of nowhere, blow Bernie Sanders completely out of the water and have Joe Biden winning states by large margins he never even visited. Remember talking about that?
Yes.
And then it was about 2 weeks later that the world shut down because of the scamdemic. What took place next was the rationale for a campaign for president where a guy got to run from his basement, just doing Zoom calls. Nothing else.
They took out Bernie to do Weekend at Bernie's.
Correct. This culminated with an election where the Democrats just so happened to get the slimmest of margins in the roughly dozen counties in the most decisive states by virtue of unprecedented mail-in balloting, unprecedented volumes of mail-in ballots, and somehow the rejection rate of mail-in ballots with an unprecedented volume went down. This is the first government system in all of human history that with instant increase of volume became more efficient. Does your post office perform better in the middle of May or the middle of December? Which do you think the answer is every single year? The middle of May. Why? Because what's happening in the middle of December every year, guys? Christmas. And so therefore, what happens to the volume of mail in the middle of December compared to the middle of May?
Up.
It greatly ramps up. Therefore, when there is an increase of volume, what typically happens to efficiency? Does it go up or go down?
Down.
Down. Except when it comes to the unprecedented mail-in ballots of the 2020 election. The rejection rate actually went down as the volume skyrocketed up. And it just so happened in the roughly less than a dozen counties where the Democrats have complete and total control of the election machinery in the most decisive states, they just so happened to eke out the win. Remember how marveled people were that Trump won the 4 decisive states in 2016 by less than 80,000 votes. Remember this? Mm-hmm. And because of this, we had to be subjected to Russia collusion, conspiracies, and everything else because, the Russians hacked our votes because he could not have possibly won by such slim margins, correct?
Correct.
But in this case, we had 6 states decided by less than 40,000 votes. And if you were to dare question the outcome of that election, especially if you did so while sitting in Nancy Pelosi's chair dressed up as the Minnesota Vikings mascot, prison it is. But wait, ShamWow, there's more. On the campaign trail, during the primary, before the country was shut down, it was very clear Joe Biden was showing signs of slowing down. We, as a show, were uniquely positioned to comment on this because the caucuses, that cycle for the Democrats, started where? Right here. in our backyard, which means we saw more of these Democratic candidates than almost anybody else did. It was very clear he was already slowing down. We were talking about it at the time. We were actually struggling as a show how far to go. Does it look, I mean, we don't want to be disrespectful to us, but it looks like this guy's got dementia, a cognitive decline. Go back and listen to our shows in the winter of 2020. You'll hear us talking about it. This became more apparent as he became president. Lots of things make sense now. How about calling a lid at noon and 1 o'clock most days as president and going back to Delaware? Well, I'm not saying, but I guess I'm saying. If indeed you were undergoing some form of cancer treatment or chemo, probably a lot simpler to keep that a secret if you're going back home to Delaware every afternoon to do that, right?
Yes.
As opposed to what's going on inside the White House, correct?
Correct.
Although, don't think they wouldn't have tried that too, because they once told us that a bunch of cocaine found in the White House at exactly the same time Hunter Biden is said, according to the logs, to have visited it, who is on record cataloging his own cocaine usage visually for us all to see. They had no idea where the said cocaine came from. But if you were trying to Davis, if you were trying to hide that the president was incapacitated, it'd be a lot simpler to pull a lid at noon and 1 o'clock every afternoon and send him back to Delaware, right? Than it would be to have this going on. Because you can't just do that once. Maybe once you can lie to us about where Hunter's alleged cocaine came from. But you're going to have a hard time hiding a daily cancer regimen for a man of the silent generation. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. His treatment's going to have to be way more regular than Hunter sporadically showing up and needing a bump to get himself through the day at the White House. He's going to need treatments on a regular basis. This is among the most detectable forms of cancer we have. You and I are post 50. We're taking PSA tests on an annual basis now. I would imagine any man 50 and over within the sound of my voice has either been recommended to or already taken a PSA test of some sort, whether that's a prostate exam or the thing where they examine your bowel movements. I would imagine you've either done that already every year or had it recommended to you at least every other year. The president's getting the best health care of any human being maybe on planet Earth, except for maybe the Pope, right?
Right.
And they up until 4 months ago, and it was nowhere to be found. One of the most detectable forms of cancer we have was nowhere to be found until 4 months ago, and now it is instantly aggressive. See, lots of things make more sense now. Why the lids? Where was he all these afternoons? What the hell's going on in Delaware 4 days a week that he's going back home? You probably now know. Aaron mentioned the auto pen. It is very clear. Everything we told you, and we weren't the only ones. Anybody on the right with a double-digit IQ had this one figured out. This guy's not running the country, and he wasn't. And he hasn't been for how many years? And if you think Axios just got a hold of the Her testimony just now, then you probably think Rosie O'Donnell just takes the Prozac for sleeping out there in Ireland. I can't help you. Then they lied to us and they gaslit us for years on the president's mental state. Just obvious clips that we could just see in real time. That this is not what you're seeing. It's not what you think it is. Jake Tapper's own network, CNN, the day before the debate between Biden and Trump last summer, running a headline ripping on conservatives for their conspiracy theories about the president's mental state. Within 24 hours, everybody on Tapper's network would now have to admit, after 65 million people watched the president's mental state, that he could not run again and had to go. So they conducted a public coup d'etat, got rid of him, forced him off the ballot. And then they replaced him without a single vote cast in a primary. The people who demand a sacred democracy didn't let one of their own voters vote in a primary for Kamala Harris to be their presidential nominee. And you know what? Their voters didn't seem to care too much about that, right? Which means the next time your neighbor lectures you on sacred democracy, just tell them, hey, stick that rake right there where the sun don't shine and spin on it while you're at it. Literally everything that we have been sold since Super Tuesday in the 10 to 14 days leading up to the shutdowns, everything we have tangibly been sold as a country, as a people, holistically, in that period of time, 5 years and change, is a lie. And not an isolated lie, a coordination of lies. The kinds of lies, these human beings cannot pull these things off on our own. We're not that smart. It took us 6,500 years to figure out what gravity was. Longer than that to figure out what electricity was. We're not that smart. Up until a little more than 100 years ago, the average American was still traveling by and large by horse and buggy. And we were the superpower country. We're not that smart. We cannot pull these things off on our own. These things require forces at work that are beyond us. The execution of timing, the amount of people it takes to pull these kinds of things off to happen, and there's no leaks prior, not a one. We are dealing with very dark forces here, folks. And you are absolutely watching spiritual warfare play itself out for the soul of this country, the last bastion of Christendom left, the last bastion of Western civilization remaining. We are the generation now. We are the period of time now that we are in the crosshairs of this. We are in the crosshairs of this spiritual battle every bit as much as the greatest generation was the spiritual battle against fascism and Nazism almost a century ago now. And these forces have so infiltrated the culture that they pulled off a shadow presidency that looks like something out of the rejected 4th season of House of Cards that they couldn't possibly film because no one would believe this. Except this was our reality. And if you think Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are this smart, they're not. These were nefarious plots. Gentlemen, your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are the same as they ever were. What are we prepared to do? If there's still time to turn this thing around, it is incumbent on us to once again be citizens. This happened on our watch. A lot of it, even when it got at its worst, our answers were Netflix and chill. We're going to lose this fight unless we become a better and different people, the people we were always intended to as we the people.
Also, over the weekend, you mentioned Netflix and chill. What was the big everybody was talking about this show at the beginning of the time frame that Steve just walked you through? Tiger King. You remember that show?
Mm-hmm.
And it just feels like it's coming full circle now. That dude is in prison. He married another dude in prison, and now the dude that he married in prison has just got deported. Are we okay?
We are not.
We are not okay. More in a moment. Well, we are about a month away from an event I am very much looking forward to because the time for playing nice is over, especially in light of everything we just laid out for you in the opening to the show. it's pretty clear that the truth right now is under siege, and we are the people entrusted by God to do something about it. And so if you want to sign up for that battle, the Last Stand Festival is coming up June the 21st in Southern California. This is not just another Christian event. It's a clarion call for those who can see the signs of the times, the writing on the wall. We're going to have worship from 10th Avenue North, Kim Walker-Smith, and more. You're going to hear from speakers from Riley Gaines to Pastor Jack Hibbs, Seth Gruber, and then yours truly, because they had to bring in, some kind of schlep to make everybody else look good. All right, so you're going to get unfiltered truth, no platitudes, just real answers, real worship, real courage to live like Christ, no matter what the cost. If you want to go to this event, you want to get a discounted ticket, we'd love to see you there. Go to thelaststand.com, use the code DACE10 for your discount. That's thelaststand.com, promo code DACE10 for the discount. Thelaststand.com, promo code DACE10. Bring your church, your kids, your doubts, but make sure to leave the fear at the door. Otherwise, we're gonna get rid of that for you. All right, thelaststand.com, promo code DACE10 for the discount. Hope to see you there about a month from now in SoCal. Also, don't forget, coming up top of next hour, something you're going to get to see something before the rest of the world does, because we just love you guys that much. And so we cannot wait to share this with you. That's coming up at the top of the hour. But we also now cannot wait to talk to our good friend Bob Vander Plaats from The Family Leader. Good to see you, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing really well. I'm very excited to hear about this Last Stand thing, and I'm glad you're going out to speak at it. I know there's always got to be somebody that sets the bar.
That's right. Someone's got to be the designated ugly fat friend of every speaker conference, and I nominate myself for said position, apparently.
Not at all. You have never disappointed us at the Leadership Summit. You've always raised the bar as well. So I'm excited about the Last Stand. Something is happening across the country. I really believe you're seeing seeds of revival everywhere. And part of it is doing things like the Last Stand, calling people together to remind them with an eternal focus and have an earthly impact. So,
amen.
Thank you for doing that.
You bet. And thanks for Seth. This thing is his brainchild, and he has put together a star-studded lineup of speakers, and then moi. Okay? All right, so you've got your own event coming up in July that you guys do every year, the Family Leadership Summit, right?
Yeah, the Leadership Summit, as you all know, it's become kind of an entity unto itself. It's the biggest thing in the state of Iowa in July, on July 11. But it's also become a real gathering all across the Midwest, and even more so across the country, of people coming into the Leadership Summit to see where does biblical leadership, biblical training, biblical worldview, how does that intersect with real life leadership application? In your audience, remember, we've had people like Tucker Carlson, we've had Donald Trump, we've had Tony Evans, we've had everybody in between. All the big of the bigs have been at the Leadership Summit. And probably one of the biggest things that happens, Steve, at the Leadership Summit, it's going to happen at Last Stand as well, I assure you. People are going to gather, and the thing they're going to leave with is, we are not alone. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the mainstream media, what they want to do is they want to cast you as you're just an outlier. Nobody thinks like you anymore. You're just the weird one. And to find out, you know what, we're not alone. And there is such a thing as truth and right and wrong. There is such a thing as a nuclear family, mm-hmm. and what God honors and what God favors. And there's things that God doesn't honor and he doesn't favor, nor should he. So, we're very excited about the Leadership Summit, July 11 coming up in just about 2 months. We're excited for that.
So you guys have just confirmed your first headline speaker for this event, right?
Yeah, we've actually confirmed a couple, but there's one that we actually can come out and say publicly now. But somebody that's like a little sister to you and me.
Yeah.
Somebody that we hung out with a lot back in the 2007, 2008 days, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. And Steve, I got to tell you, if there was one speaker that I wanted to secure, it was Sarah Huckabee Sanders. One, it's a real God story. She always just wanted to be behind the scenes, propping up a guy like Steve or propping up a guy like me or propping up her dad. Mm-hmm. She wanted to be just a campaign operative. She didn't want to be out in the public eye. And all of a sudden, Trump, in the 2015-2016 cycle, I think it was 2016, I think he was ready the nominee, but they needed to have a female on CNN representing the Trump campaign. And everybody was taken there. Had a lot of different bookings. You know how that goes. Mm-hmm. They said, well, let's put Sarah out there. And so Sarah does a CNN hit, and Trump is like, She's really good.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, she gets in the White House Communications Department. She's under Sean Spicer. Everybody knows what happens with Sean Spicer and Trump, and pretty soon Sarah is up there. And the whole country falls in love with her. I shouldn't say the whole country. The people who believe like we do fall in love with her, and other people are taking real pot shots at her to where she needs her own security detail. Then she leaves to go home to focus on her family. She goes home to focus on her family in Arkansas, and the people of Arkansas start telling her, you need to run for governor. And now she's the governor of Arkansas, and she is leading the country in church-government partnership to break bondage to meet community needs in the state of Arkansas. It's something that every state should replicate, and I just love it that she's coming back to Iowa to a base that loves her dad. This is going to be a great welcome home for Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
And it also means that you and I are officially old, brother. It also means that. It also means that.
I'm okay to be an official older brother. The
chick who got us coffee and donuts is now here to address us as the governor of her state. We are old, bro. We're just old now.
Not just the governor of Arkansas. I mean, anybody with any kind of a glimpse into the future. I mean, that's not her. She's not.
Sure, this is going to spark 28. Yeah. And she's smart to come here. Listen, I love Sarah to death, but she is smart to come here and immediately stake her claim to be J.D. Vance's running mate in 2028. All right, get out ahead of, because that's all we're having is a running mate sweepstake. All right, so get out ahead of the rest of the prospective field, right, and demonstrate that that she would be a good complement to J.D. in the GOP 2028 primary.
Here's what I love about. There's so much I love about Sarah, but here's what I really love about Sarah. She wasn't looking to be the White House press secretary. God created the way for her to be a White House press secretary. She wasn't looking to be governor of Arkansas. God created a way for her to be governor of Arkansas. She's not looking for something beyond governor of Arkansas, but it'd be just like God to create a path for her to do something above and beyond Arkansas. I just think she's threaded with the right stuff. She's leading with the right stuff. She's bold and courageous, but with a compassionate voice. It's really showing how Republicans can win in the future.
I agree. She's been a superstar since she got
So
that
we're
gig.
thrilled to have her. And I'd tell your audience, keep July 11 open on your calendar, either to tune in with a live stream, but also to be in person. We're going to have a lot more announcements that you're going to be very, very excited about.
All right, let's get to some of the news of the day. And the bombing of this Palm Springs fertility clinic over the weekend, the manifesto. Now, these are the kinds of things that under the old FBI, we may never have seen this manifesto.
Exactly.
Okay. And if we were, it was not going to be as immediate as we have received this one. Okay?
Remember the trans student in Tennessee?
Yes.
Who shot up the school?
It took years. I think Steven Crowder, wasn't he actually one of the people that finally broke through to make sure that got into the public?
And
I think
also we take down all the social media. Nobody can research this stuff.
Yeah. So there's a different level of transparency already.
Yep.
Immediately calling it a terrorist attack. I saw that report when I was at the gym this morning. And the manifesto clearly demonstrates that the murderer had every intent of making a worldview statement here. And terms like mortalist. I mean, I don't even know who talks like this.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, of course, the great irony of this is within our circles, on our side, IVF is a very hotly debated topic on our side right now. Okay.
You bet.
But this just goes to show, because the debate on our side is over whether this is the best method of pursuing the cause of life or not. He's not even interested in any form of that kind of nuance. From his worldview, you're just talking straight nihilism, and anything at all that even remotely smacks, even if it has some problematic undercurrents to it, but anything at all that would remotely smack of the pursuit of life is something that is anathema to his demonic worldview, and he put that all in writing for us. And frankly, it's not any different than it's just the language and the actions are more extreme, but at the heart of what you hear from Yuval Harari over there at the World Economic Forum or any of today's abortionists, the fundamental premise of the worldview is the exact same thing.
Yeah, and the reason I wanted to bring this up, Steve, is I thought there can't be a clearer depiction or picture of what is the battle that we're fighting today. This is spiritual warfare. This is a culture of life versus a culture of death. This is John 10:10, where Jesus says, listen, Satan comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And that's what this guy bought into. So when you said, I don't even know who talks like this, well, we don't hang out with those people. right? Where we're not in small groups with those people. But he talks like that. Steal, kill, destroy. This life isn't worth living. I'll blow myself up and I'll kill other people in the process and make sure I make a statement on my way out. That's why we live in unprecedented prosperity. We're running away with the world's wealth right now, and there's not even a close second, and yet suicide rates are through the roof. Because Satan comes to kill, steal, destroy. And that's what you saw in Palm Springs. And Jesus says, but listen, I come to give life, and I come to give it abundantly. So that for those of us, those who are with the Steve Deace Show, those of us with the Family Leader, those of us who share this type of worldview, communicate God's gift of life. There is an opportunity to embrace life and embrace anew and embrace in all of its abundance right now. And what you're seeing here, it's a culture of death. What you're seeing here is a culture of life. And we want to always be on the side of advocating for a culture of life.
And of course, life and the perpetuation of the family are intertwined together.
Oh, without question.
And so, another thing that happened over the weekend is Hillary Clinton came out to speak again for reasons, but she has been a gift for our side. Now that she no longer is interested in trying to get anybody's votes, she is now just removed any veneer of Barbara Streisand BS whatsoever.
Let me tell you who I really am.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. We're just letting the freak flag fly, okay? Yep. And she, openly, we had this clip in Aaron in your montage as well, just an open disdain for the ideology of the nuclear family and things of this nature, for wanting to have more children in the culture, okay? Just an open, complete and total disdain. And just like Joe Biden did not just find out he had the most arguably the most detectable form of male cancer over the weekend, despite having the best healthcare on planet Earth up until 4 months ago for the last 5 years. Okay. Yeah. Just like he didn't just find that out. Okay. Right.
And this is something that they diagnose us with all the time. They assess us all the time.
Yes. In our age group, we're doing these PSA tests every single year. All right. And so just like that didn't just happen. Okay. Hillary Clinton did not just have these views. All right. This is what she has thought the entire time. And this is the worldview of the other side. What's happened here is both because they think they have a certain amount of hegemony, and then on the other hand, because they've been so cornered politically, they've largely given up on the code language that was so prevalent when I first broke into doing this for a living. And when you first, formed an organization like this or first ran for office, we'd have to decipher for voters or audiences code words of what these things really meant, right? Mm-hmm. Now they don't speak in code at all. Now we're just letting it hang. We're just telling everybody straight up, we're opening our mouth, forked tongue comes forth, and doctrines of demons are spewed. And so that you can see that in the disdain for the nuclear family.
Without question. And I think what it is, it goes to, again, the Palm Spring bomber. God creates life, so therefore Satan says, I want to crush life. Mm-hmm. God's first institution is the family. I want to make sure that I dismantle that thing at all cost. And when we're taking a look at it, we just got done with our legislative session here, Steve. And so much of the stuff that we deal with is just the ripple effect of the breakdown of the nuclear family. Why you have a growing Health and Human Services department. If you're ever going to slow down that growth, you need to get back to the nuclear family. Matter of fact, the abortion statistic, 86% of abortions that are happening today is because it's to single women. It's a man is not a part of their life anymore. Mm-hmm. You take a look at how do you have success? If any of you are raising kids out there, how do you have success? Have your child graduate high school, have them at least get a job, get married, and then have kids in that order, and you have a 2% chance.
That's amazing.
Of being in the poverty level. 2% chance. You just do those things in order. And the nuclear family, we're coming back to it now. Because everything is, I don't care what it is, it's because of breakdown of the nuclear family. Meaning a mom and a dad committed to each other for life with Christ as their center, raising kids, discipling kids. When that happens, you don't need the kind of government that we're putting on people today. So what is, Satan says, I am going to destroy that nuclear family. Hillary Clinton's going to be, I'm going to destroy that nuclear family. I don't want you to have kids, but when you do have kids, I want to make them my kids. Guys, this is not that complicated, but we need to get back to embracing and communicating and advocating for a mom and a dad raising kids and being in church on Sunday.
Todd and Aaron, what do you guys think?
Well, I go back to the gentleman who you mentioned, Steve, that you met with, the senior statesman, who said, if you really want revival, do you know what that's really going to mean? I offer the same thing up here. These are demonic forces that are in the way of this. But how are they in the way of this? They are manipulating all kinds of regular, normie people to set the lowest possible bar of comfort for themselves. And at many, many suburban churches, we have wear your favorite football jersey Sunday instead of talking about the thing you're talking about, because we're afraid people will leave and won't tithe. We have to address the reality in front of us if we really want to see actual change.
Yeah. And I think part of that is, Todd, as I talk to our kids about all the time, is in the book of Proverbs, guard your heart, for it's the wellspring of life. And part of guarding your heart is renewing your mind, being careful what do you put into your mind. And what they want is they want the mind of the children. Parents need to take that back.
Aaron?
Amen. And just looking at where we are as a country comprehensively, I mean, there are some days that, and we've talked about this before, there are some days where we come in here and say, we are so back, and then there's other days where we say it's so over here. The truth is somewhere in the middle. You can look at some really positive developments in this country over the past 5 years, whether it's school choice and parents, Moms for Liberty, getting more involved and active in what their children's education look like. But again, it's moms, so you can look at the flip side of everything. The bottom line, though, again, is what Todd harps on over and over again, and this entire show does harp on over and over again. We can have as many apparatuses as we want to try to accomplish our stated beliefs, but ultimately, wherever we go here, wherever we go, it's going to be up to people deciding that they are going to act. Men in particular. Again, we have strong leadership right now, whether it's in the White House, places like Iowa, places like Florida, but ultimately it's going to be up to the people to decide what kind of people they want to be.
Todd or Bob, 20 seconds.
Real quick, mom and dads being moms and dads. You talk about the life issue and 86% of abortions happening without a male involved with that woman. And then you look at the prisons and they have one thing in common. They don't have dads. You need fatherhood back as well.
Speaking of which, that brings us to a special unveiling coming up next. Stay tuned. And we are back with Hour 2, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast with Aaron McIntyre and Todd Erz, and I'm Steve Deace. Let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox. Email us, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, MeWe, and Gab. You can follow me at Steve Deace Show on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Don't forget to also please subscribe to our new YouTube channel at Deace Show on YouTube. That's at Deace Show on YouTube. And there should be some news here soon on YouTube's attempt to censor this program over the last few years or so. So subscribe to our new channel. Until then, at Deace Show on YouTube. Also, don't forget, if you love the podcast version, we love you as well because you're a big part of our audience. In fact, Apple remains the #1 way that people access our program each and every day. So whether it's on Apple or iTunes, that way you'd hit follow or whichever podcast platform you prefer. Otherwise would be subscribe. If you click those buttons, it makes sure that every time we do a new episode, it's right there in your feed every single time. And then also make sure to leave us, if you like us, of course, leave us a 5-star review. Thanks to the tens of thousands of you that have done that for the show as well. We appreciate each and every one. Those things do help the show to continue to grow. Our friends over at Angel Studios, fresh off the huge hit King of Kings, which deserved all the accolades that it received. I thought it was an absolute masterpiece. Their latest is another film starring Neil McDonough. I mean, he's kind of become, to Angel Studios like Tom Cruise is to Paramount, man. He's their go-to dude. All right. And their new movie, The Last Rodeo, an action-packed story of a retired rodeo legend who straps back in for one more ride, and it's to risk it all, including maybe his own life, to save his grandson. He'll be the oldest rider to ever enter into the arena. And the movie is about healing broken bonds, facing the past, proving what real courage means, fighting for the people we love. It's raw, it's heartfelt, and it's Neil McDonough in a cowboy hat. All right, so I've got the screener for this. I've not had a chance to watch yet. The trailer, though, looks pretty good. So if you want to get tickets to see this right now, it opens this Friday for Memorial Day weekend, one of the biggest box office weekends of the year. When we were growing up, Todd, it was the kickoff to summer. Was typically this weekend. Now, sometimes it's late April, 1st of May, but it is still kind of the unofficial beginning of summertime for many people. So get it for theaters this weekend right now. That's angel.com/Steve. That's angel.com/Steve. Get your tickets today at angel.com/Steve. Well, this has been a day that it has been a long, strange trip to get to this particular day. And it all started because of one random comment during a commercial break from you, Mr. McIntyre. And I looked at you and the light bulb over the top of my head went off and I said, you know what? I don't think that's just a throwaway, brother. I think that you are onto something. All right. What it has taken to get from Aaron's concept to the finished product we are about to preview for you. You guys are going to get the very first look at my new book, Richie Meets the Rainbow. And there's the cover. And yes, we've got star-studded endorsements from Seth Dillon at Babylon Bee, Charlie Kirk at TPUSA, Eric Metaxas, Jesse Kelly, Robbie Starbuck, and several more. There has never, ever been a Pride book like this. It is, after all, a heartwarming tale of childhood enlightenment. And when you get your copy, make sure to pay very careful attention to the expert, I guess we'll call them endorsements for you on the back cover of the book. That might even be my very favorite part. We're going to hold that back for the actual release of the book. We are granting this audience an exclusive. We have 2,500 special hardcover editions for sale starting now. I will personally sign. We won't even do book plates for this. I'm going to personally sign all 2,500 of these books. It's our special Pride edition. You saw the little sticker there for Pride Month that we have. And Aaron, can you put that up there one more time? I want to draw people's attention to something there. You might notice these are very meta. These stickers there in the bottom right corner. You might notice the biblical rainbow has 7 colors. The Pride rainbow on purpose has 6 because, guys, whose number is 6, right? Okay. So you'll notice that our rainbow also has 6 colors, but the 7th color that is missing from the Pride rainbow, we put it over the top there and put Pride Edition, the words Pride Edition, in that color to make sure the 7th color was added as Richie Meets the Rainbow. I'm going to sign all 2,500 of these hardcover books. Now, this special edition, you guys are essentially our GoFundMe. I paid for this book entirely out of my own pocket. Finding an illustrator, a publisher, let's just say on the timetable it took to get this out to you in time for Pride Month, this book will go on sale later in June for the rest of the country. Let's just say, given the scheduling that it took to get this done, given the subject matter, even if you've written 3 best-selling books, as by God's grace I have been blessed to do, there wasn't a bunch of people lining up to say, you bet, let's take on the most demonic time of the year, the saddest season of all. So we had to do this one ourselves. All right, I paid for this entire thing out of my own pocket for this book. We had to go to Hungary for the illustrator. We had to go to Viktor Orban's Western oasis to find someone who would actually draw this book for us. All right. And so we have special Pride editions, all personally signed by me, only 2,500 of these for $40 a piece. And that will pay for the cost of making, printing. I'm even paying for the postage for these. All right. Everything we had to do to get this book to you without anybody editing it, getting us to soft pedal it, all of it, we had to just do this ourselves. Right? Just like I had to make Nefarious myself, had to produce the film, raise the money for it. Same thing here with the book. Pre-sales begin today. All right? RichieMeetsTheRainbow.com is where you can go. That's RichieMeetsTheRainbow.com. RICHIE for RichieMeetsTheRainbow.com. Now, there you go. There's the website. Thank you, Aaron. RichieMeetsTheRainbow.com. So now, I think it is only fair to let you guys see exactly what it is that you're going to be buying. Because I promise you there has never been a children's book like this one before. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I present to you the first ever public reading of Richie Meets the Rainbow. This is Richie, a curious lad with a million questions that often drive folks mad. Why is the sky blue? Where do babies come from? And why does my teacher always look so glum? Richie loved colors, the brighter the better, and rainbows were his favorite, each shade a treasure. But one day at school he noticed a flaw, a rainbow with just 6 colors. What happened to them all? Teacher, said Richie, his hand held high, why does this rainbow leave out a stripe from the sky? The teacher, adorned in a rainbow-themed tee, smirked and said, that's not something for you to see. For 6 is the number, and 6 is enough. It's modern, it's woke, it's the progressive stuff. But don't tell your parents, they may not agree. We'll keep it a secret, just between you and me. Richie blinked twice, unsure of what to say, but the teacher leaned in a conspiratorial way. If your parents think otherwise, let us know. You could be our little informant and help our cause to grow. At home that night, Richie felt odd, so he asked his dad while eating some cod, Dad, why do some rainbows have 6 colors bright when the ones in the sky, they have 7 in sight? His dad put down his fork and gave him a look, then reached for the Bible, his favorite book. Richie, his dad said, his voice steady and firm, there's something important that you need to learn. A long time ago, after storms covered the earth, God sent a rainbow, a sign of new birth. 7 colors, each one with a purpose, a message from heaven and proof of a promise. The rainbow is not just a colorful arc. It's a symbol of hope that lights up the dark. Richie listened, his face growing solemn, and his dad spoke of truth so steady and calm. Richie looked up at his dad, confused. Dad, why does my teacher say only 6 colors can be used? His dad sighed deeply, rubbing his chin with care. Sometimes people just don't want to play fair. Some try to change the truth and want us to comply. Unrepentant savages twist some symbols and lie. The 6-colored rainbow is a demonic psyop, a way to confuse people with a nefarious plot. The real rainbow has 7, each color with meaning. It's God's promise to us, not just some fleeting feeling. It's not just for the pride of a season gone mad. It's a sign of His grace, a gift to make hearts glad. So instead of ratting out his parents to sleazy communists filled with doubt, Richie chose to tell his dad what the teacher said, the plan that they had. His dad's eyes widened, filled with surprise. Then he hugged Richie tight with real pride in his eyes. You did the right thing, my brave little one. Standing for truth is how battles are won. That night, his dad spoke a promise so true. No more of that school, that den of iniquity is through. I'll make sure you're taught by those who love God and follow his word without bending or fraud. But that's not all, son. I will stand up for what's right. I will fight for you and your generation both day and night. Henceforth, I'll make sure those who can't speak for themselves have a say, and my presence at that local school board meeting will be an extended stay. Richie smiled wide, feeling safe in his heart, knowing that from now on his dad would always do his part. Richie knew he was lucky and felt truly glad. A good dad is something Richie wished more kids had. The end. So, if you want to help us get this book out into the mainstream, if you want to see this trending in LGBTQ books here in a few weeks on Amazon, this is your opportunity here. You guys on our audience, you get the first look. There are only 2,500 of these hardcovers, Pride editions, and I am personally signing all 2,500 because apparently I like arthritis. Okay, so richiemeetsttherainbow.com. That's richiemeetsttherainbow.com. That's where you can go. This book will go on sale later in June for the most demonic time of the year. richiemeetsttherainbow.com is where you can go right now. Get your copy at richiemeetsttherainbow.com. Personally signed, $40. There's only 2,500 of these hardcovers. If we sell them out, that means the book will have paid for itself before we sell a single copy to the general public later in the month of June, because we paid for this. I paid for this entirely out of my own pocket to make this happen. richiemeetsttherainbow.com. Thanks to all of you in advance for your support. I hope that the book is the subversive tool that you are looking for to spread the word. It is finally time once and for all to smash this shibboleth of the damned in our culture. And it has held a hypnotic hold over too much of the culture. And now more than ever, I think we can prove the old Catholic saying that what the devil hates the most to be mocked, we can prove it true once more with Richie Meets the Rainbow. So richiemeetsttherainbow.com is where you can go, again, to get your special autographed edition. There's only 2,500 of these. Those are the only 2,500 we're going to print. And we're not printing any more of those hardcovers. That's it. And then the rest will be for sale starting later in the month of June. So you guys, again, you guys are the GoFundMe here. We're offering this to the audience to try to make back the amount of money that I paid for this book, the illustrator, everything, postage, everything, out of my own pocket. All right? richiemeetsttherainbow.com. That's richiemeetsttherainbow.com. And I need to give a special shout out as well. It wasn't nearly to the extent of what we faced with Nefarious, but we really did see God open doors to get this thing done, illustrated, made, completed in time for this to happen. Truly incredible. The Lord clearly wants this book out, given the doors that had to be opened, the deadlines that had to be navigated. And I've got to give a shout out to my literary team. I know they're listening right now. Tyler and John and Charles have done incredible work. There's no way I could have pulled this one off on my own. And those guys and Tyler's a gal, they did incredible work to get the finished product from Aaron's throwaway line almost a year ago at this time. I think it was late May or something, right? That you mentioned this to me during a break. And so to get this all done and to come together and shipped to you and illustrated and everything else in a year is truly remarkable, and would not have happened both without the Lord's favor and also the hard work of John and Charles and Tyler. So I want to give them a very special shout out too, because I know they were listening to the very first public reading. I think they were more excited to share this with you guys than even I was. Okay. Because they have been grinding to make sure that we got to this final day. So it is time to take back the month of June. It is time to smash this shibboleth of the damned. If you want to take part in that and help us to pay for the hefty investment that my company made in getting this book out into the masses subversively to infiltrate Pride Month, all right, go to Richie Meets the Rainbow, RICHIE, richiemeetsttherainbow.com. All right, guys, what do you think?
Well, I fully expected the devil to be mocked. And
That's right. You've not seen this yet.
You've not seen that, yeah.
I forgot. So you saw this for the first time with the audience. I forgot about that.
The purity of little Richie, in the graphics, and juxtaposed to the ridiculousness of the teacher, I expected that. One thing I did not expect is what, in my estimation, the real main character of this book is. It's the dad.
It's the dad. Yeah. Dad gets to be the hero again. Yes.
Yeah. And that's really the ball game. It's what's at the heart of many of the themes that I hit upon when I talk about all manner of topics. We just have a men problem in this country. And you have to decide what's your duty under God, what's your duty as a citizen. And if you won't, this is what you will get. And all your complaints will ultimately be for naught. Your schools belong to you. Your children most certainly belong to you. How much do you care about that?
Mm-hmm.
The simple fact of the matter is, no matter what you may say in some sort of Hallmarkian one-off, it's the doing that matters. And in terms of the doing, it really looks like the men of this nation have not loved their children or their citizenship in the most freest nation ever created very much. Because look where we are. I commented about this in terms of our inner cities and some commentary about the mayor of Chicago and how ridiculous some of his overt racism is. Well, this is one of the largest American cities in the country. Do you know how much men must fail on multiple levels to default to this being your leader? Sitting around and complaining about it like you had nothing to do with it is beyond. And I mean, even people living in the suburbs of Chicago. It's always somebody else's problem. Even if you don't live there, if you're living in Aurora or something like that, that should matter to you. But it often doesn't, because we got other things to do. I just think this book is it's like Aaron's, it's like the coffee table book that Aaron can connect with Cosmo Kramer on. That's actually a coffee table you fold out. Like this book can also be used as something to beat somebody over the head with, both figuratively and literally, because that's apparently what we need. Dad, do your damn job.
Amen.
Already seeing people saying that the server maybe has crashed on the website or some other things. Just be patient. Hopefully things will smooth out here on that end.
That's a good problem to have.
It's a good problem to have.
Yep.
Where to begin with this? So I came up with a concept, and it was kind of a version of the title that you ended up using. And I wanted to take each color of the rainbow and do kind of what you did Dr. Seuss style with the true meaning behind those colors. I think it's the Crayon song that does something similar. But what you came up with, the final result, I think may even be better than my original idea, because it's not only subversive, it's also transgressive in all the right ways. Because the established norms and morals, I don't know if you've been paying attention, the established norms and morals of our culture are completely 180 degrees to what is in this book. Now, I will say, because I get behind the scenes looks at some things, you came to me, and this is not a knock on you, but you came to me with the first kind of draft of this book, and like, that's okay. but, it's not really the idea that I was going for. This is the idea that I was going for. Not saying that this is all about me. This is just behind the scenes stuff. This is what I was going for because it was subversive. It's marketed in a way that if you're just kind of going through the Pride books section on Amazon, you might, hey, this would be great for my kid to get. And then you read it and, oh, bleep, I was had. And not just to troll, but to truth, to tell the truth. So this is subversive and transgressive in all of the best ways. And I love at the end that Dad is the hero. Dad is the hero. And I hope that is not just encouraging spiritually, but maybe causes dads who do read this book, who might be aligned with people like us. It prompts them, it spurs them to action. It's like, hey, I look and sound a lot like that dude there. Why don't I actually act like that dude there?
Mm-hmm. To me, I think, and the timing of this, because also in the middle of Pride Month, what else do we have in the month of June that we commemorate every year? Father's Day. I mean, to me, this is the quintessential Father's Day gift. I mean, if you get to a certain point, particularly if you've had a dad who has been successful, you're like, what do you give to the guy who kind of has everything? I mean, he doesn't need another TV. He doesn't need another lazy boy. He doesn't need another car. Doesn't need another stall in the garage. What do you do? What's something unique and original you could do to honor him? I mean, the fact that he would be a dad worthy of the archetype that we put into the book. And again, the archetype we put into the book is not perfect. Right? He did a little outsourcing of this to the school district. Just kind of assumed, up front, they were going to do the right thing by his kid like they did for him when he's growing up in his generation, right? So it's not about being prescient or prophetic. We're human beings. We can't see everything. We're not omniscient. We're not omnipresent. It's about what happens when the people that you are charged with protecting and defending come to you and say, hey, we're under assault. Hey, we're being violated. Richie's too young to understand that. But that's essentially what he is demonstrating to his dad. I'm under assault. I'm being violated. It's not about not being able to foresee things that determines whether or not you're a good dad. It's about how you respond when the things you could not have foreseen or did not foresee are presented to you. Do you respond actively or do you respond passively? And what you see here is Richie's dad responds very actively. First of all, how about the idea of just sitting down and having dinner together as a family, just to even have these sorts of things heard? Hey, how did your day go? What happened at school today? Things that just got taken for granted in previous generations of the nuclear family in America that are atypical in the time in which we live. Out of that stems the conversation. And Richie feels like he can safely take to his dad his concerns. His dad responds. What's his dad's initial response? Takes him to the truth, takes him to the Word of God. That's his initial response. But here's the thing. It's not also now just a contemplative exercise. Dad doesn't say, well, here's what the Word of God says. Here's what your school says, Rich. And, you're the neutral third party here. You render the verdict. No. Dad says, I now commit to action. It gives very specific actions. I will monitor the school district myself. Looks like we're going to have to put you in the schools where people don't hate God, like this school currently does. These were considered basic expectations for dads in this country for about 200 years. And for about the last 40 or 50 or so, they've been the desires, but not the expectation, the hopes. So I wanted to make sure that Dad was the hero. I wasn't going to finish this in any way that Dad didn't get to be the hero. But he gets to be the hero by being a dad. By being present. By listening. By responding or being engaged, and then by acting. So again, these are the only 2,500 full-sized hardcover copies of this book we are ever going to print. We're never doing this again. And this is something we are doing special just for the audience of this show. A, to say thank you guys, because without you guys and the success, I mean, we lean on you guys a lot, man. We take risks. Sometimes they work out. Sometimes they don't. We don't even agree with our own audience at times, right? And yet, you know, we just signed a contract extension a couple of months ago. This show continues to last and to grow. And none of that happens without you. So first and foremost, you guys deserve that, because we don't get things like, you know, opportunities to do books like this without a platform like this. But then secondly, because of the content of this book, I had to pay for this one out of my own pocket. So we are also hoping that this exclusive will work as a GoFundMe so that the book is already free and clear of debt before we ever get out into the Gen Pop later in June, because who knows what will happen. I mean, do we get censored? Does the thing become a bestseller? Do we get canceled? Do I need security at my house? Frankly, all of those options are on the table probably, right? I mean, in fact, multiple of them could happen. It's very likely if this ends up on the bestseller list, I'll need extra security at my house. All right, those two things probably go together, okay? All right, so if you want one of the exclusive, full-sized, special Pride Edition hardcovers, everything after this that we sell will be a soft-cover children's book that you will see distributed coming up here later in June, about a little less than a month from now. All right, so if you want one of the special Pride editions that I will personally sign all 2,500, and then we're not selling any more of those. RichieMeetsTheRainbow.com. Again, that's RichieMeetsTheRainbow.com is where you can go. RICHIE. RichieMeetsTheRainbow.com. I've already gotten a ton of emails from people. Has the server crashed? Did you guys already sell it? I don't think we sold those out that fast. All right, but chances are the server is seeing way more action than it was anticipating. So just keep trying, please. And believe me, you guys know me. This ain't going to be the first time you're going to hear about this until every last one of these is gone. Okay? All right? RichieMeetsTheRainbow.com is where you can go. RICHIE. RichieMeetsTheRainbow.com. Get your personally autographed special Pride Month edition of Richie Meets the Rainbow, one of the only 2,500 hardcover full-size editions we're ever going to print of this. RichieMeetsTheRainbow.com. All right, when we come back, first it was Kash Patel, now my buddy, who I don't know, and now my buddy Dan Bongino, whom I do. Top 2 men at the FBI have now publicly stated that they do believe, after reviewing the file, that Epstein killed himself. But I still have follow-up questions, as much as I respect Dan. I want to get to some of those questions with our friend and FBI whistleblower, Steve Friend. We'll do that here in a moment. Stay tuned. This July, there is a global summit of BRICS nations in Rio de Janeiro. That's the bloc of emerging superpowers, wannabe superpowers like China, Russia, India, Iran. They are meeting, again, it's called the Rio Reset, with a goal of trying to displace the dollar as the default currency in the country. Just, you never know. I mean, just a lot of our enemies are not just going to think it's just downright pleasant that we have an administration that is at least doing whatever, you know, it understands to do to try to get our house and affairs in order after the demonic psyop of the last few years. So that's another reminder to make sure that you're prepared, and our friends at BIRCH Gold Group can do that. They can help you move your hard-earned savings into a tax-sheltered IRA in precious metals. Claim your free info kit on gold right now to get you started. No obligation, just information. All right, your free info kit on gold for the Trump era when you text Steve to 989-898. That's text Steve to 989-898 to BIRCH Gold with an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau. Tens of thousands of happy customers. All right, get started today with a free, no obligation info kit on the ultimate guide for gold in the Trump era by texting Steve to 989-898. That's text Steve to 989-898. Also, again, the website, if you want to get to one of the only 2,500 full-sized hardcover Pride editions of Richie Meets the Rainbow. You can order them right now at RichieMeetsTheRainbow.com, RICHIE, RiCHIE, RichieMeetsTheRainbow.com. All right, let's go to our good friend and former FBI whistleblower Steve Friend, former FBI agent. Good to have you back, brother. How you been, Steve?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me today.
So you know Kash Patel. I don't. And you had mentioned in our year-end show that he had done something very kind for you and your family, when the FBI got rid of you for blowing the whistle and what was going on there. I do know Dan Bongino fairly well. So between the two of us, we have some personal experience with the two guys currently running the FBI. And first, Kash Patel said this in congressional testimony. I think it was about a week ago, or a little bit less than a week ago. Dan Bongino reiterated this on Fox News over the weekend, put out a tweet about it on X as well, or a post, I guess is what we're calling him now. So they have both now said they have reviewed the file, and they believe Jeffrey Epstein did kill himself. Now, I have no idea what the incentive would be for Bongino to lie about this. I mean, however long he wants to be the deputy director of the FBI, I would assume at some point he plans to go back to his show, right? And it ain't like telling that audience that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself is a real crowd pleaser, Steve, okay? I mean, I don't know if you've seen some of the comments that Dan is getting right now from people in his own audience on social media, but that's not necessarily the way to go back and relaunch your show as, hey, I'm the guy that decided that Epstein killed himself. So I have no idea what incentive Dan would have at all, okay, to simp for the total state on this. So I'm just going to take it, because I trust him, I'm just going to take it that he did review the file and has come to that conclusion, all right? But I still think there are follow-up questions here, Steve, and as a former FBI investigator, I'm wondering if you can tell me if these are legit questions. For example, like no follow-ups were asked of Dan or Kash by Maria on Fox Business when they said this. Here are some follow-up questions I think that should have been asked, because Jeffrey Epstein could have very well killed himself, but then we are left with questions such as, where would the means by which to acquire the opportunity to do so come from? All right. So, how is it possible that the highest asset, arguably the highest asset detainee the federal government had at that period of time, would have been given and had access under surveillance, Steve, to commit suicide? Where would the methods of suicide, the tools to culminate that, where would those have even come from? How would he be allowed such things? Is that a valid question?
It absolutely is. And look, you have to really strain credulity to come up with a feasible answer at that point, because he had been on suicide watch. I know that some sort of PhD level person came in and said, no, we can take him off of suicide watch, but we're going to have very special circumstances. Epstein's going to be in the cell with somebody else. Someone's going to check on him every 30 minutes. And yet again, we have these fail-safe measures that seem to all have coincidentally, serendipitously, providentially all happened where you have cameras going out and you have people not doing the rounds because they fell asleep. So I think I want to even, as a callback to a prior conversation that you and I had as it pertained to the Epstein client list, I think that people are frustrated because they had an opportunity to maybe make a down payment on that escrow, give a little bit, pull back the veil a little bit on that list. They would have bought more patience, but instead they didn't do that. And now, as it comes to the actual suicide, where there's been a lot of conspiracies that have circulated around this for a number of years, falling back on the old just trust me is just not going to pass muster with a growing number of people around the country.
How difficult, based on your experience, and I don't know how much access you had to, first of all, the United States government, I don't know, has ever had an asset in detention like Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, given the amount of blackmail material he had acquired on some of the leading, names in the Western Hemisphere, I just don't, that's got to be one of the most sensitive detainees that the United States government has ever had access to in its 249 years of history. You think that's an accurate statement?
Oh, yeah, I'd put him up there with like Khalif Sheikh Mohammed.
Okay, so great analogy. All right, so that also means, therefore, that the typical MOs probably don't apply here, right? Okay, so given your experience, though, how you understand the detention process, how difficult would it have been for him to acquire the methods of committing suicide on his own, in your view?
I would rank it as slim to none at this point, because of the fact that they had these very special circumstances where he was supposed to be under observation, the fact that you have surveillance. And it's not like in the movies where you look at the surveillance cameras and realize that the Ocean's 11's plot works because there's a blind spot. Those don't exist. You're talking about surveillance that is state-of-the-art, particularly for somebody like Jeffrey Epstein in a high-end. We're not talking about like a small podunk jail in rural Nebraska somewhere. He was under surveillance. There should have been multiple shifts of people. There's stopgap measures in case that there is a failure at one point along the chain. What we're relying on now is that there were failures sequentially in all of these very convenient places that would have allowed him the time, let alone the access to kill himself with paper, which to me, again, is very troublesome. It's very hard for me to believe on its face. But I go back to what you said about Dan Bongino. What's his incentive to lie about this or to withhold information about it? I see no reason right now why that information couldn't be turned over to the American people. We're not talking about an ongoing investigation, no sources and methods. It's not going to compromise any other things that they have going on there if it's just limited to how did this man die in the custody of the United States government.
At the time, we were told that that there was an investigation by the DOJ, and because there was all kinds of reports of security cameras misfiring during the time that Jeffrey Epstein was incarcerated and everything else. I mean, the kinds of things that this thing was so ham-fisted, the odds of this are just beyond astronomical. Am I remembering that stuff correctly, Steve?
Yes, he was clear, or this was deemed to be a suicide in 2023. And I mean, you're talking about a coincidence, things that are against all odds that happen to coincide just perfectly, that lines up with a math club geek being able to gain access to a slightly sloped roof 150 yards from a would-be president and actually succeeding in his assassination attempt when he put a round into his head.
Well, when you put it like that, I think that drives the point home. But at a minimum, the United States federal government completely failed in properly detaining its most sensitive inmate since Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. At a minimum, that happened, right? So then, who was fired for this? Who was brought up on criminal charges for allowing this to happen? Who was held accountable for this?
I can't think of a name that comes to mind, similar to the way that the individuals who were all part of that chain of command that authored the intelligence bulletin from the Richmond field office of the FBI that said that Catholics who had a preference for attending the Latin Mass were likely to become anti-government extremists, aka domestic terrorists. And Christopher Wray testified about the fact that they did an internal investigation, which took years. Nobody held accountable, and even the special agent in charge of that office, Stanley Meter, is still there. So you would think that this high profile of an individual case, a Jeffrey Epstein, we would at least have a name attached to that, somebody held accountable, and it wouldn't just be a letter in the file, some sort of censure. It would be at a minimum a termination, and likely there's a deprivation of rights sort of investigation that could have happened from the DOJ.
Our very own Glenn Beck just put this on X about 45 minutes ago, saying, hey, as someone who knows both Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, I want to believe what they said. And I think they're credible. But in order for me to believe Epstein killed himself, the FBI must produce, and he said the following. Number one, the full unredacted forensic and autopsy reports. Number two, the surveillance footage or sworn testimony from neutral parties confirming no foul play went down. Third, the entire timeline of that camera, the video leading up to when it went out, the exact moment it was turned off, why it broke, and why the most high-profile prisoner in America was removed from suicide watch just days before. Four, most of all, what changed Patel and Bongino's minds. And Glenn concludes by saying, I tend to believe Patel and Bongino. I don't want to believe there's some sort of conspiracy inside MAGA, but I also believe that Epstein didn't kill himself with a paper sheet. So show us the facts. We must restore trust. Your thoughts on those comments from Glenn Beck?
I think that those are all perfectly reasonable requests from Glenn Beck, because this, again, is not an ongoing investigation. I might even augment it with something else. I want to know what the visitor logs were. I want to know the visitor logs, not just to Jeffrey Epstein, but anybody there that day. I want to see the surveillance cameras and see if anybody was not put on the visitor logs, because it's been my contention for the entire duration of this that it's not suicide, but he could have killed himself because he got an offer that he couldn't refuse. You're talking about Jeffrey Epstein had all this compromising material, could coerce people. What's to say that the same technique wasn't used on him, some sort of blackmail material or a threat to one of his loved ones, something that was important to him. They said, look, we'll just make this really easy. We will put you out, and then we'll just make it look like a suicide. That, to me, as far as being in the realm of speculation, is entirely believable. And I think we could go a long way into finding out if something like that is true, if we were able to gain access to the documents and the visual evidence that you would have from the surveillance cameras around the complex.
Final question, Steve. At a minimum, true or false? If he did kill himself without any outside help whatsoever, then this is the greatest failure in the history of the federal detention system, and heads should have absolutely rolled for this. Then, if at a minimum that should have happened.
Oh, for the federal detention system, absolutely should have happened. I mean, you're talking like a movie-level catastrophic event here that should be on par with the Secret Service failure to protect a presidential candidate or even a president, the FBI's failures to do an investigation of the Las Vegas shooting. I mean, you can just go down the list here. But as far as a Bureau of Prisons failure, this is on Mount Rushmore.
Steve, remind our audience that they can follow your outstanding work, brother. Always good to see you.
Oh, thank you for that. You can follow me on X at @RealSteveFriend, and I also host a podcast called the American Radicals Podcast, which is available on Rumble and on iTunes, Spotify, and iHeart.
Always good to see you, man. Hope you're well. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
You did this on short notice. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You got it.
All right, Todd and Aaron, I want to get you guys' thoughts. Take a second to gather them while I tell our audience about Fast Growing Trees. They've got the largest online nursery that is out there in the country. Up to 6,000 plants to fit any space, from indoor plants to fruit trees, full-sized privacy trees, and more, shade trees. Whatever you're looking for, whatever matches your climate, your environment, they'll help you do that. They've got a 14-point quality checklist to ensure you're getting the best possible plants out there. They've also got trained plant experts that are on call for you to help you to plan your landscape, choose the right plants, and learn how to care for them. And this spring, they've already got the best deals out there for your yard. Up to half off on select plants and other deals every single day. But because you're a part of our show, if you've never gone to them before, your very first purchase, they'll take an additional 15% off as well. At fastgrowingtrees.com, use the code DACE to get that first-time buyer discount. Code DACE for that first-time buyer discount at fastgrowingtrees.com. Code DACE, fastgrowingtrees.com. Code DACE, because now's the time to plant. Use the code DACE to save today at fastgrowingtrees.com. Offer valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions may apply. All right, guys. What do you think?
I don't know. I'm forced to wander into places I don't want to go. I guess I'll just say out loud one of the things that came in my head. Is it possible that they are not being honest with us because of some sort of art of the deal or quid pro quo, and that if we aren't quiet on this, it's part of negotiating a release of information on some other front that would have to be equally as profound in terms of its revelations. Like I said, I don't know what that would be. So, the goods on Fauci and something like that and COVID. But these are the questions I'm forced to ask myself, because Bongino also came out, I think, part of the same conversation, and said there's no nefarious there in terms of the two assassins as well. Did he? I had not seen that. I think that's the case.
Well, no conspiracy is what I think the term that he...
Yeah. But we've got questions on that as well. I don't know. These are smart
Okay,
guys.
how many people in the Secret Service were fired then for letting that guy get to 150 yards of the president with a face shot?
That's the thing. We never get anywhere in terms of what we just talked about with the dads. The same thing, the men. The doing. It has to be more than just saying something. There needs to be consequences. Until we get consequences on these things, they're going to continue to abuse us.
Not trying to make excuses here. I'm just, again, what did we just begin the show with? The levels of string pulling here just goes beyond human comprehension when you look at the last 5 years. And, this is one of the things that really kicked off the craziness. I remember one of our first dates with Bella before we got married. We were on the way to the Iowa State Fair, and it was the day after Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. And that's, that kind of started off one of the things that started off this crazy era. Is it just as simple as this level of planning, this level of cunning, this level of all of those layers, special layers that Steve Friend was just talking about? This is something that was planned and carried out by people who would never even let the FBI or CIA know what really happened. Okay, you see what I mean? Mm-hmm. We're not just going to leave this up to, hey, we might get a Republican president who might declassify this. So no, this is something that was carried out in a way that not even the FBI would know what happened. Is it just that simple?
It could be. But this goes to what Todd just said. There has to be accountability. Then at the very least, this is the greatest singular failure in the history of the American prison system. Someone's professional life and public name should be ended and shamed over something like this.